You're listening to Game and Chat, where we level up with conversations about gaming then and now. I'm your host, Daniel, aka One to Switcheroo. So let's press start and game on. Welcome everyone to another episode of Game and Chat, streamed directly to your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, or all of the above to support the cause. And with that being said, episode 5 is here. Welcome everybody. I know the last one was a bit of a downer, but Majora's Mask was such a game that made an impact on me, and I feel like I had to put that input out there. But today, on a much lighter note, it's time to talk about one of the franchises that has been in my life very predominant since I was a very young kid, and up to this day still give me much joy despite why some people might say about it. But anyway, welcome to the Pokémon episode, everybody. It is time to talk about the biggest gaming franchise, the biggest media franchise in existence right now, and we cannot deny the impact and how massive Pokemon has become. Since very early, it has been an amazing trailblazer when it comes down to games, merchandise, TV shows, media in general. But we need to just talk about where everything started, and like why up until this day, almost 34-year-old Daniel still enjoys the franchise like it was the first time. And I'm sure a lot of you guys that are Pokemon fans, as I am, feel the exact same way. It's like a timeless thing that we always go through, and we kind of wait to see what's the next iteration and what's the next iteration and so on. And that's how they capture that Pokemon fever, that fan base, that fandom that originated with the 8-bit game. I don't know if it's 8-bit exactly, but back in the day when the first Pokemon games released in the Game Boy, and how much of a cultural shock that caused, starting on Japan and then spread all across the world since then. So we're going to talk about that today, guys. It's the Pokemon episode. I'm very excited. First of all, thank you so much again for the continued support with the podcast. I really appreciate it. This week, it's been a little rough for me just because I've been fighting allergies. So apologies in advance if my voice here is a little deep and I take a little bit more breaths than usual. We're just trying to overcome them. Springtime is very rough for me, but hopefully it's not as bad as other years. Seems like it's going to be that way, knock on wood. But we will do our best to record this in the least amount of sneezes as possible. So, without further ado, welcome everybody to the next episode of Game and Chat, episode 5. Too old for Pokemon. And of course, as always, we started from back in the day. We are looking at the early years of little tiny Satoshi Tajiri, a little kid in Japan that would have a fascination of catching and collecting insects of different kinds for his amusement, and how years and years later, coming along with his fascination of video games, he came up with the idea of creating all those pocket monsters that we love and cherish up until this day. And that's how Pokemon started. He is the creator of the Pokemon franchise, founder of Game Freak and all of that. And of course, we're looking back, which now makes a lot of sense after I did my little research, that turns out that the first Pokemon ever created and designed was actually Rhydon. And Rhydon, being this kind of like Godzilla-ish inspired creature, his sprite is all over the first Pokemon games, and now it makes a lot of sense. Why is that? Just how they get inspired by, kaiju battles, and the whole idea of catching them and then train them and then put them into battle. Japan has always been very big on like kaiju battles. By kaiju I mean like big size monsters battles. I mean, we can take, for example, the Power Rangers, when the monster grow and then they use the Megazord. That's a kaiju battle right there. That's why every episode had a freaking giant version and the Megazord, and it always end up like that. That's the inspiration it got it from. So, of course, recreating the idea on how to implement this and make it more appealing to kids, then Pokemon was born. And the fact that it was like a whole different concept back in the day, which again, at some point I thought they were called capsule monsters, if I'm not mistaken. And again, based on that, Mr. Tajiri's inspiration. But then they wanted to take it one step further and give those characters, those monsters, like a meaning, a purpose in the world, in the environment, and how to us as trainer, we bond with them and trade them to become the ultimate Pokemon master. And and everything started from there. Then we streamlined back to 1996 when the first Pokemon games came out on the Game Boy. We're talking about the green Game Boy, the one with the green screen, and how such a very, very simple concept, quote unquote. I say quote unquote because us as kids, honestly, we just wanted to catch them all, and you just wanted to just streamline through the game, beat the gyms, and become the Pokemon champion, get the 150 Pokemon, the end. Of course, there's a lots of more things to do in today's games, but as children, we just wanted to know how these monsters look like. We just wanted to compare our monsters with your friends' monsters, which one's better, put them into battle, who wins. Maybe friendships were ruined in the process, but it's just the magic of how this actually became such a social interaction between players. And one of the very first games that actually implemented interactions with other players, whether it's battling, whether it's trading Pokemon, and just playing along. It's just the fact that it's kind of like the next step to the Tamagotchi, the virtual mascots, as other people call it, but giving them a problem and make them way look cooler, I have to say. So yeah, I mean, this is just a rough concept of what the franchise is about. I mean, if you've been living under a rock, then that's what Pokemon is. We'll touch on the subject, whether this is immature or not, later on the podcast, but right now it's giving you the origins of it. And of course, now, like I said, back in 1996 we got Pokemon Red, Pokemon Green releasing in Japan first, and then they came up to the US and Europe as Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. For some reason Pokemon Green didn't make it, or they had used to do the blue version. I was always wondering as a kid, because we will get the red and the blue, but what about the green? Like, they're just neglecting Venusaur. I don't know if it's sort of popularity wise, maybe it is. I mean, at the end of the day, how many of you is his favorite Pokemon is Charizard? You are so predictable. Not mine though. It's cool. I like Charizard a lot. It's not like my ultimate favorite in the end of the day, but it's not surprised that out of the three starters is the coolest looking one. So everybody will look at the coolest and go with the coolest, followed by Blastoise, of course. Venusaur is actually the better one, I gotta say. Is the only one of the starters that actually has a dual type. Right now, we see that as adults, that we play the game in a different way. But when this game addressed to kids, you just need to appeal for, popularity. Everybody likes the dragon with the wings, so we always gonna go with the dragon with the wings. That's why it's so much popular. And particularly my experience with the franchise is I got my first Pokemon game, like I said before, was actually Pokemon Gold. I did play the first Pokemon game that I played was Pokemon Blue, and again, I didn't own a Game Boy back in the day, so I had to play it on either my cousin's Game Boy or a friend's Game Boy when I got introduced to the actual game. And it's just great. And it was very, very smart to put it on the Game Boy instead of like on a full-fledged console back in the day, because it's the fact that it's the thought of having the game of the palm of your hand, that you can go anywhere, turn on your Game Boy and play the game and continue your quest, catching the monsters, training them, battling people, battling NPCs. It's just great. And that's what makes the stick, the fact that you carry that thing with you everywhere you go. You will play in recess, mid math classes, and it's just unbelievable. And I remember that it was such a big back in the day in my country and in my school, that it was kind of like a business at some point, to just like trade Pokemon for, I don't know, for something from the cafeteria or something. You wanted to negotiate with people. It was like the early stages of negotiating when you were a kid, when you look at that. But it's just how they really managed to capture that sensation of like discovery and awe every time we catch a Pokemon. I remember the first time when I played Pokemon Blue, and I ended up in the lighthouse and I found Zapdos for the very first time. I didn't know what Zapdos was, and then it starts the music, and then you hear the cry and you see this like spiky bird coming at you. It's like, oh my god. And which is funny, because now looking back to the Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee that came out a couple of years ago on the Switch, that little cutscene that happened when you find the bird, that's exactly how you imagine it as a kid. In that little screen on the Game Boy, in your mind, the cutscene from Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was happening, which is kind of like a full circle moment on that regards. But since then, like, I just felt enamored with the franchise. And then when the series came out on the TV, and you actually see like the Pokemon personalities and how like they a little bit gives you a little bit more of a glimpse of their Pokemon's behaviors and all that, and then you move that knowledge from the TV show into the game, makes the game even more enjoyable. I mean, of course, we need to talk about Pikachu, which is, you know, along with Mario, is one of the most recognizable characters in media ever, along with Mario, along with Mickey Mouse. It's unbelievable what the little rat can do. You know, such a cool like design overall. I still can't fathom that parallel universe where the main mascot was very, very close to actually being Clefairy. And not only being Clefairy, but there was a specific design of Clefairy in the Pokemon manga that was a little... Imagine Clefairy with Wario's personality. I'm gonna leave it at that way. Yeah, look for the early Pokemon mangas where Clefairy was featured, guys. Or maybe don't, you know, see if you can stomach it. I couldn't, so I'm gonna leave it in there. But anyway, the fact that you got the name, you got the nice concept, and you have a killer mascot go with it. Yellow, the red cheeks, the ears, like the lightning tail in the back. Everything is just memorable from the start. And that's what makes this franchise successful. That's what actually caught my interest from the very first start, to the point that although I played the first games late, I think a year later, they came out with Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver the year after I played it. And that's when I got my first Game Boy, and I got my copy of Pokemon Gold. Again, that got stolen from me on that fateful day on the beach house. I will never ever remember it. I remember it was Pokemon Gold, and I recently got Pokemon Crystal too, so they got Pokemon Crystal from me as well. Oh my god, what a terrible day that was. I remember crying the whole first day. It was very, very hard for me to get over it. I mean, I cry more because they stole the whole car. That's the thing. They stole the whole trunk of the car with our luggage, our belongings, But all I care about was the Game Boy. Not my underwear, not my clothes, anything. I guess fudge everybody else. No, just kidding. But anyway, it's just wonderful. And, you know, as the games evolve, the themes of the games evolve with us too. New generations, new Pokemon. We were getting older. We were getting more complex designs that it's still designed for kids. And at the end of the day, it's gonna be centered on kids. But then you start putting the pieces together of what the meanings or the reasons of why these designs are the way they are, and it is kind of mind blowing on certain instances. The descriptions of the Pokedex, things that we didn't pay attention back in the day. Now you look back and say, oh my God, some of them are actually kind of terrifying to say the least. But anyway, it's all just those little nitpick things that make the game very special and very memorable. I'm pretty sure up until this day, a lot of us remember most of the things, if not all the things about a specific generation or favorite generation per se. My favorite generation, of course, is Generation 2. I love Gold and Silver and Crystal so much. I love the remakes as well. I think they are one of the best remakes out there. But I had to give a soft spot to the original ones just because of the impact. And that was like my first wow moment when it came down to Pokemon. And I said this before, but now I can elaborate a little bit. My wow moment in Pokemon Gold and Silver, and just in the franchise in general. First, the fact that they were expanding upon the monsters. You know, Pokemons that did not have evolutions before, now they got some evolutions. And Gen 2 has two of my favorite Pokemon ever. My top two, actually, being Umbreon and Scizor. Love them to pieces. And discovering that, first of all, discovering by accident that I traded my Scyther to a friend because he wanted a Scyther and I had a spare one, but I didn't know it had a metal coat on it. And then seeing it evolve to Scizor, I asked him back immediately, nope, give it back immediately. And then after getting an Eevee, which I was actually planning to turn it into a Jolteon or Vaporeon, never like Flareon. But I wanted to get a Jolteon, so I was trying to find a Thunderstorm in anywhere in the game, and it was in the evening. And then I was just training my Eevee while I was doing that. And then when I suddenly started to evolve into Umbreon, it turned into this dark, glowing, dog-like creature, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually pretty cooler. And it's just that sense of discovery that that game gave me in a lot of things. But I want to say the biggest one was when, after I cleared the game, oh, watch out, spoiler alert, by the way. I don't know if you haven't played the game, you don't know at this point, but again, it's more than 20 years, so deal with it. Anyway, you beat the whole game, and then you realize that you can go from New Bark, you surf on the little lake on the right side of your house, and then suddenly you find yourself in freaking Kanto. And you can just walk all over Kanto. You can challenge the gym leaders again. You can go to Pallet Town again and basically replay the first Pokemon game in a different way. And not only that, but then the absolute ending when you clear all the Kanto gyms and then you head to Mount Silver and you find yourself against Red, aka Ash, aka whatever name you put the character in. That being the final boss in the game with all those level 80 something Pikachus, the starters, depending on the version of it, the Pokemons vary, but it was that when it was like, oh my god, this is like peak gaming experience. Anything that combines new with nostalgia and old, saying it in a good way, will always be as successful. We're seeing it in other different games Like, for example, on a much less extent with Super Mario Odyssey, the fact that we clear the entire game and we just reappear at Peach's castle, and we go into the castle and we hear the Mario 64 castle theme playing. It's just wonderful. Yes, the castle wasn't, it wasn't the Mario 64 and you weren't playing the whole game. But just a little nitbits to like the past and nostalgia can like spike up the adrenaline, the excitement, because it's something new yet familiar. And we always have a soft spot for nostalgia and familiarity in our games. And I think Pokemon Gold and Silver and Crystal really, really encapsulate this better than any other game, in my opinion. And that's why they are my favorites. That's why it's my most fun memory on the games. And then, as we said before, as the franchise continues to expand, first the games, then the trading cards. Not very fond of the trading cards myself. I did play Pokemon trading card game. I thought it was really cool. I honestly don't remember any of it. I just remember enjoying it for what it was. But I mean, if I were to get into the cards, I think we're gonna open a whole rabbit hole. So I'd rather stay away from it. But anyhow, we got new generations. We got new Pokemon. We got new gameplay mechanics, new types, and so on and so on. And we grow older as they continue to come out, and yet here we are. Like I said, mid 30s at the moment, and we still find ourselves with that same joy and excitement when a new generation comes out, because we see it with a fresh set of eyes. And now that we understand a little bit better of what was about, it's like we enjoy the franchise on a different way. And that's why I think the evolution of the Pokemon games as we grew older, I think kind of matched up that same continuity, because the games got a little bit more complex. Yes, they're still addressed to children, as I said before, but they're getting a little bit more complex. The meanings of the design, the pocket descriptions, the main plot of the story now has a much deeper meaning, which for kids might not mean as much as for us adults. And that's why in adulthood somehow you get to experience and enjoy these games even more, especially when you go back to the old games. It's like a whole different experience. Like we said before, it's like experiencing something anew in a very familiar setting. And this is not only story-wise, we're also talking about the gameplay itself. We're more familiar with the type matchup. Like I said, the mechanics is a little bit more complex, so I think we can approach the game in a different way. We don't get steamrolled by Whitney's Miltank in Pokemon Gold and Silver anymore. We can actually plan ahead now, instead of like facing ourselves with that freaking rollout without nothing else to do to avoid doom in that matter. But it's just great. And like I said, I'm replaying Pokemon Gold right now after a while, now that they put the emulators in the iPhone. So I downloaded it and I started playing the game, and it's been a joy, and all my memories are coming back to me of how much I enjoyed this game. And I'm gonna do the same with other generations. Of course, we have people's creation, like the fan modified games. There's an Emerald one that they highly recommended to me that included actually newer Pokemon in the mix. So I'm gonna check that out very, very soon. And like I said, it's just how the franchise has evolved and has grown along with us and keeps it relevant up until this day. Eventually, with the release of Pokemon Go in the past, how old is Pokemon Go already? Like 8 years, 7 years? I'm not sure. That's crazy to think of, actually. Maybe even older. Was it? I'm not sure. Anyway, it is just great how the expansion of the franchise itself, to keep it in our minds, to keep it present, it's great. And for us Pokemon fans that got it from the 90s, it makes just so much joy. And that joy and that excitement for little caricature animals that someone drew out of his boredom might not appeal to other people. And and that's where this next topic comes up to. It's like approaching this as an adult. Like I said, we're in our mid-30s. A lot of us still can remember and have the joy of playing this game over and over and over again. And some people, either younger or older than us, that didn't grow up with this, might not understand it. And that's where the whole social perceptions and stereotypes comes along. And how do we address that? Because we're human beings. We're gonna like different things, and that's completely fine. Whether you like something or not, it's entirely your opinion, and as your opinion, I respect it. And as my opinion, I love Pokemon, and you should respect that as well. In the end of the day, some people might look at that as, might take it a little harder than others. But, we all have our that one that one interest that not many people might understand. And you know what? Whether it's under the principles of morality, that's completely fine. And it's your thing and your thing only to enjoy. And the fact that you can share this joy with others that think the same, it's just great. At some point, not that I see myself having kids, but if I were to have a kid, it would be so much fun to teach them about Pokemon, and just to have them play Pokemon with me and enjoy the franchise altogether. That's something that I would like to experience on a certain level. I said, not that I'm planning to have kids, but it would be nice to share with a little cousin or something, to introduce them and play it and see the joy and then get excited for them, etc. I don't know. It's a really cool feeling. My point being that it comes from nostalgia. It comes from something that we were so familiar when we were kids, and brought us so much joy and fun memories. And there's nothing wrong to bring that to your present. And that's what Pokemon in adulthood it's about. And that's fine. If you don't feel the same way, you maybe play Pokemon, maybe you didn't like it and you don't feel that nostalgia, therefore you let go of the franchise, and you might look back and you feel like, no, this is just for kids. And it's okay. As myself, I've been playing this game every single damn year of my life, at least once. So I'm gonna keep doing that because it is something that brings me joy, brings me back fun memories of my childhood, and I want to continue doing that as long as it brings me that joy and that sense of comfort. In the end of the day, it's a video game, and I love video games, and that's all there is about. People like the trading cards, people like Pokemon Go. Within the same franchise, there might be certain preferences, and there might be some discord on what setup of the franchise is best. I mean, I can say it, I love the games. I was not a fan of the TV show. I watched the TV show when I was a kid, but then it got repetitive and Nash kept losing, and I just said, you know what? Get out of here. I don't want to see you. And then it was kind of nice to go back when Ash retired, and actually he managed to actually win the Champion League, whatever, and finally win the entire thing. It was so nice. I rewatched the battles and the Champion Leagues, the final season, just to see that happen. That character that I followed when I was a kid, And I watched that show religiously until it became repetitive. And like I said, you know what? I'm just going to focus on the games because the show is not going anywhere. The kid's not even growing up anymore. And it was just kind of like a full circle moment to see that he actually did it. He became the Pokemon master that he considered himself to be. And it's just, like I said, the franchise grew with us. And the franchise find a really, really cool soft spot to like transition in terms of the TV show. Ash retiring the character of Ash and Pikachu on a point of our adulthood that we can actually look back and reminiscent and feel nostalgia, feel sad, but like a happy sadness that we finally made it, and now it's time for us to enjoy the rest of our lives. And yeah, I mean, it's the best. That's the best example I can put in regards of like how this is still relevant even in our mid-30s. Is that if it brings you happiness and it's something that you find yourself fun of, why stop doing it? You know, some people might lose their way by stop doing the things they love because they will think society will think less of them. And at the end of the day, the only person that can think what's better for you is you. And that's all you need. Everything else will come along as long as you love yourself and you take care of yourself and do the things you love, and people will be drawn to your joy and your happiness. And that's it. And leads to what this sense of community of what this franchise has created. The Pokemon community is, you know, it might have its good and bad side depending on like whether there's the good fan base, there's the toxic fan base that think they always should be more and should be better. In the end of the day, I mean, they're both are right on certain degrees. It's just about how to find the sweet spot. And at the end of the day, whether you are upset that Pokemon should do better in their latest games and like, you know, invest more money and time and development in their games to make them look better, which I completely 100% agree. And whether you're in the team that I don't care about the performance or I care about my Pokemon and enjoy the game whatever it takes, both are absolutely right. And it's the harmony that we need to find on these concepts. The Pokemon community is an amazing failure because in the end of the day, whether we agree or disagree on many things, we can all agree that we love this franchise to death and we enjoy the interactions that we have with it. I mean, whether their business practices are not as good, I gotta give it to Pokemon Go for putting Pokemon in the palm of our hands with our cell phones, giving the catching experience, and bringing people back that even that stop playing the games or they don't play video games anymore, they reintroduced them to the franchise and started playing Pokemon again in their cell phones, and maybe they brought them back to the Pokemon games of this day. And it is just great and amazing how this was a really, really cool concept. Again, business practices not so great, but the main core intention is there and brought a new way to interact with these communities even better. People find themselves more curious about knowing about the franchise, what's new, what are the new Pokemons, what are the new moves, and all that stuff. And you know, it all dates back to the Game Boy days, that Pokemon being one of the only games that you can actually are able to communicate to another person via the cable link, and by connecting a cable from one Game Boy to another, you can trade Pokemon, and it's just great. You can actually interact with this person, and again, advantage and marketing genius of the fact of having the dual versions of the games, with the slightly differences that there's certain Pokemons that you cannot catch in one game that you can find in the other, and vice versa, just made it to the point that, okay, I guess I have to buy both games, or I guess I have to find a friend with a different version so we can like trade and like, like have that interaction and share the passion, and and how that evolved like throughout the years with the different consoles and the different methods of interacting. It's just great. And then the Pokemon trading card game came to be, started as a Game Boy game, and then where the actual cards came out, and now it's like one of the biggest entertainment pieces out there, with so many collectors, so many cards, that again, the more I look at it, the more I think they don't make sense. But again, you like the cards, and that's awesome. You have a lot of entertainment for you there, and that's not gonna stop anytime soon. My point being, is the ways we can communicate and the ways we can share the main thing, which is our love for this pocket monsters. It's just great. And it extends to the merchandise, plushies, Funko Pops, action figures, etc. And eventually the movie that came out, Detective Pikachu, how it made it to the actual big screen. And you know what? It was a decent movie. Like, it wasn't mind-blowing or a blockbuster per se, but they actually represented it very, very well, and it was well done. It was successful. Still, honestly, it's still kind of upsetting that they didn't go ahead with Detective Pikachu 2, because I thought the movie did a decent job, and they could have continued on that. It was gonna be profit, no matter what. So, but that's what I'm saying. It's just great, and they do now events for Pokemon Go, like every year, that people will gather together on a spot in the world, and they will have like certain Pokemons that will like spawn there that they don't normally do, and they just all come together. I mean, the best example for this is when Pokemon Go first released. I remember all those videos on Twitter of people running in Central Park just because somebody yelled that there was a Vaporeon near, I think it was near the Bethesda fountain, and you see the stampede of people running to the Bethesda fountain trying to catch that freaking Vaporeon, which was a rare Pokemon at the moment for Pokemon Go. And some people might have broken the law while doing so, but it's just how this like becomes such a cultural phenomenon, and how, again, driven by people that come from the nostalgia side, that play the games from back in the day, play the games up to this day, and now sharing them with that person that maybe wasn't very familiar with Pokemon itself. But then Pokemon Go came out, and they rekindled their likeness and their passion for the franchise, to the point that, okay, maybe I'll pick up Pokemon again, maybe I'll like it. So lots of like people that just made friends. You hear stories of people that meet because of Pokemon. And actually, I can just put a very, very good example of this. I used to work in this hotel a couple of years ago at the front desk, and I remember watching this. There was the Pokemon Go event happening in Central Park, and then I see this this nice old couple. I want to say it's 70s, and I seen them come back. I haven't seen them for the first time, but I seen them come back, and they were both wearing a Pokemon t-shirt. One was wearing a Pokeball, the one had a Pikachu. They had 2 cell phones each, as they were talking to me to get me new keys, and they were just like trying to catch Pokemon. And then I started to chatting with them and say, "Oh, you guys are here for the Pokemon event?" And they say, "Yes, we love it." And then, how did it go? Yeah, we actually managed to catch them all. We got a shiny. What was it? It was a shiny. They got like 2 shinies each, something like that. And they were so happy. And they were telling me how they only traveled to the States to stay for the weekend just to see the Pokemon Go event. And how they've been doing that across the years. I mean, this couple, literally, they could be doing anything else, people might say, but they're doing the thing they love. And they actually enjoy the franchise. 70-year-olds, people, that's what I'm saying. There's no shame. There's no like something to be like self-conscious of. If you do something you love and it brings you smile and brings you joy to you and your couple and your partner, it's amazing. And it really put a smile on my face. And sometimes you might have that moment of self-doubt that it was like, should I just stop doing this? Like it's really like, and then I saw that and it was like, no, why? They're enjoying it. They love it. And then they brought their grandchildren the next day, and then they went to Central Park. They were all playing Pokemon and they trading within themselves, and it was just so freaking cool to watch. That this again slated for children, and I'm gonna add quote unquotes there, basically brings families together, and it's a very like interactive activity for them, and it's just great. That's a very nice memory I have, and I will cherish that, because it's kind of like a reassurance that it's not about whether something that you like is childish or not. It's whether you enjoy it to the fullest extent, and that's all there is. Pokemon, it's joy, and that's totally fine. And for those who seem to be having a very hard time letting us enjoy Pokemon, in the end of the day, like I said, it's for your own joy and your own well-being. People are always going to judge. We cannot escape judgment in this world, unfortunately. I wish I can say otherwise, but in the end of the day, we are one planet, but every person mind, it's a universe, and it could be completely different from ours. We can share the same ideals, but the way we execute them is always going to be slightly different than others. That's why we need to be open on how address this type of how do I address judgment, and how do I make it in a very constructive way. It's all about respect. It's all about boundaries, and you don't like Pokemon, fine. You think that I'm a kid or I'm childish for still playing Pokemon with 34 years old, fine. Will I stop doing it because you said so? Absolutely not, because this is what brings me joy. If playing football and going out to clubs and partying brings you joy, so be it. Go do that. Go what makes you feel joy. Let's meet in the middle, that we can both enjoy a nice dinner and talk about the things we like. But let's not come at each other's preferences, because that's not how society and adult conversations work. Adult conversations work where we can share ideas, and we can share passions, likes, dislikes, and we can respect each other and still have a good time, whether we agree with those things or not. And that's how this whole stereotype of like people that play Pokemon are childish, it just completely falls off. And trust me when I said that I've been hearing this like my entire life, whether some family members or some friends, the cool friends from school, that I will turn them down to go to play soccer instead of me sitting down playing Pokemon Stadium 2 on my 64. And I didn't feel any sort of remorse at all. I mean, other than, oh yeah, maybe I should be doing this, but then I just go back to my Pokemon game, and I was just, you know what, I'm fine. Like, I don't need to do anything else, because it's what I like. It's not hurting anybody, I'll tell you that. And it's completely fine. Just like you like go partying or playing football, it's completely fine. It's not hurting anybody. I mean, I don't know how much you drink, but if it's hurting yourself, then you should watch out. But I'm not gonna. You're an adult. You make your conscious decisions, and so do I, by playing with my Pikachu plushie. Anyway, I don't play with plushies, but you guys know my point. If you play with plushies, it's fine. It's your life. Enjoy it. Be proud. We only have one shot in this world, and might as well take the fullest advantage of it by doing the things we love. So be free of enjoy the things and forget about other people might say or think. They don't matter. The only person that matters in the end, it's you and you only. And just be proud of who you are and be excited and be happy of the things that you like. And for those out there that will stop you and said, aren't you too old for Pokemon? You go ahead and tell them, you're just too old, period. That being said, my name is Daniel Navarro Blake. I'm 34 years old and I love Pokemon, and I won't stop loving Pokemon until anytime soon. Yes, Game Freak, fix your games. They don't deserve to be this Yankee. Other than that, I love the franchise. Keep doing a good job on that matter. And on that final note, we reached to the end of this episode, people. Today, we talk about Pokemon, the biggest media franchise ever. We touch on how Pokemon has been loved and cherished by me through all these years and continues to grow as strong as it is today. Yes, there could be some improvements on today's games. I think that should be a topic on itself on a different time, but for now, we just want to leave the positive out there, and it's all the nostalgia and love and joy. We said joy a lot of times on this episode, but that's just the word that comes into mind every time I play these games. No matter the generation, no matter the Pokemons that appear in the game, no matter the setting, it's always going to be a good time for me, and I'm always going to go back for them whenever I need to. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Now I want to hear from you. What is your most memorable Pokemon experience? Whether if it's in the games, in the card games, in the anime, whatever you want to share, please do so in the comments below. I will be happy to read them and see what are in common. I already told mine. My favorite generation is Pokemon Gold and Silver and Crystal. My favorite Pokemon are Scizor and Umbreon and Greninja, actually, close third. And of course, I want to hear what are your favorite Pokemon. And you know what? Maybe we'll get more creative with this. It's not the only Pokemon episode we're gonna do. We're probably gonna discuss every generation at some point, giving their own episode. And yeah, I mean, every time I people ask me about my favorite Pokemon, like I tell them this, but then sometimes people ask me at work, hey, what are your talents? I tell, well, I can name you every single Pokemon by looking at their picture and their name. We may put that to the test very soon, so we'll see how we can do that format. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, everybody. This has been amazing to talk about this with you all. I hope you guys enjoy as well. You guys know where to find me. Clicks on the links below if you want to find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and also if you want to get the live experience 12switcheroo, you can find me on twitch.tv at 12switcheroo. If you want to see the VODs, you can go to my YouTube channel, 12switcheroo on YouTube. And for anything else, just stay tuned for the next one. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. My name is Daniel, aka 12switcheroo, signing off. Game on.